She married a man rumored to be frozen inside, but their wedding night melted everything. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. Mara Ellis never imagined she would one day stand in front of the headquarters of Cross Industries, a tower of steel and mirrored glass that shimmered coldly against the winter sky. She hugged an old leather file to her chest, trying to ignore the way her fingers trembled in the February wind. Behind those polished doors lived a world she had never belonged to. But today, it had summoned her. The foreclosure notice taped to the refrigerator in her one-bedroom apartment had left her with almost no choices. Medical bills from her father's long illness had crushed every attempt she made to stay afloat. She had sold furniture, cleaned houses, worked double shifts at a diner, and still she was drowning. 12 days left before the bank took the last thing her father had ever loved. Then came the message, a simple email, from Adrian Cross himself. People whispered about him constantly. The frozen heir. The man whose face never cracked. The man who ran his empire the way a surgeon handled a blade, precise, steady, and without hesitation. Mara stepped inside the lobby. The floor gleamed like polished ice. Every surface reflected the soft overhead lights, and every footstep echoed with a solemn clarity that made the entire building feel alive and listening. The receptionist looked up with a professional smile. "Mr. Cross is expecting you. Penthouse conference level. Expecting her." The words felt unreal. The elevator ride was silent except for the soft hum of the cables. Mara stared at her reflection in the metal walls, noticing the exhaustion beneath her eyeliner, the strain hidden behind her polite smile. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into a long hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows. The city stretched beneath her like a map, distant and glittering. At the far end stood a man, Adrian Cross. His back faced her as he looked out at the skyline, hands in his pockets, posture straight and calm. The late afternoon light cast a pale glow across the sharp angles of his suit. He did not turn until she was close enough to hear her own heartbeat. "Miss Ellis," he said. His voice was steady, cold, and quiet, exactly like the rumors described. When he finally looked at her, his expression did not give away a single thought. His eyes held a stillness that made her want to avert her gaze. "Please come in," he said, gesturing toward an empty conference room. Mara walked inside and saw a set of documents arranged neatly on the table. Legal papers, signatures, conditions, clauses, a contract. Her breath stalled in her throat. Adrian closed the glass door behind them before speaking. "I will not waste your time. I require a temporary marriage for legal and public reasons. This arrangement is not romantic. It is a partnership that protects certain aspects of my company and satisfies requirements outlined in an inheritance clause." Mara stared, unable to form words. In return, Adrian continued, "Your family home will be secured immediately. All outstanding debts will be resolved. You will receive a financial stipend for the duration of the arrangement. You will have independence, privacy, respect. There will be clear boundaries. We will have separate rooms. There will be no physical expectations." Mara felt the edges of the room closing in around her, though Adrian spoke as calmly as if reading a weather report. She forced herself to ask the only question she could find. Why me? Adrian studied her with a stillness that made her feel transparent. At last he said, "Because you do not want anything from me. You do not chase influence. You do not seek status. You have no reason to manipulate the outcome. That makes you the safest option. Safe. Just safe. A practical choice in a world that treated people like numbers in a ledger." Mara lowered her gaze to the papers again. Her father's handwriting lived in the folder she carried. Memories of him working long shifts. Memories of him telling her that kindness and honesty matter in the end. If she walked away now, she would lose everything he tried to build. Her voice quivered as she whispered, "What happens if I agree?" Adrian stepped closer, though not enough to invade her space. His voice was low. "Then the arrangement begins today, and your life will change." Her heart pounded in her chest. She did not know if this decision would break her or save her, but she knew she had run out of choices. With a slow, trembling breath, Mara signed her name. Adrian closed the folder with a soft, chilling finality. The contract is now in effect, and just like that, Mara Ellis stepped into the silent, frozen world of Adrian Cross, a world where nothing was simple, and nothing was ever what it seemed. Mara had barely lifted the pen from the contract when Adrian closed the folder with a soft, decisive motion. It was not loud, but it felt final in a way that made her chest tighten. He looked at her for a moment, studying her expression with the same unreadable calm that had carried him through the meeting. "Follow me," he said. There was no impatience in his voice, no aggression, but a kind of quiet authority that allowed no space for questions. Mara picked up her worn leather file and followed him into the corridor. The soft hum of the lights above and the distant rush of air through the vents created a strange kind of silence, a silence that made her footsteps feel too loud, too out of place. They entered a private elevator, one that required a keycard to activate. Adrian placed his card against the panel and the doors slid shut. The small space seemed to narrow around them. He faced forward, hands in his pockets, posture tall and controlled. Mara felt the weight of his presence even though he said nothing. "You will relocate to my residence today," he said at last. Her breath caught. "Today, yes. The public announcement will be made soon. Any inconsistencies between our statements and our living arrangements would be problematic." He said it the way someone might read a list of safety instructions, but it sent a cold ripple through her. The elevator opened into an underground parking level. A black sedan waited, engine running, headlights glowing faintly against the concrete walls. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door for them. Mara slid into the seat, trying to steady her breathing. Adrian entered from the other side, and the car pulled forward with a smooth glide. The city passed outside in streaks of steel glass and pale winter sunlight. Mara clasped her hands together in her lap, trying to keep them from shaking. "You are overwhelmed," Adrian said. She hesitated before answering. "It would be difficult not to be. Transitions are always uncomfortable," he said. "But clarity returns once order is restored." His voice carried the tone of someone who had taught himself to rely on structure instead of emotion. Mara wondered what had shaped him into that kind of man. The sedan turned down a quieter street far removed from the noise of downtown. A tall residential tower rose at the end of the block. Its mirrored windows reflected the sky in fractured slivers, making it look almost unreal. The driver pulled into a private drive, and the doorman stepped forward with a respectful nod. Inside, the lobby felt warmer in lighting but colder in atmosphere. Everything was arranged with flawless precision. No clutter, no softness, only control. Adrian walked toward another elevator. "This building has limited access. It protects privacy." The elevator took them to the penthouse level. When the doors opened, Mara stepped into a home unlike anything she had ever seen. The ceilings rose high above her. Light poured through windows that looked out over the endless stretch of the city. Every surface was smooth, polished, and perfectly maintained. Adrian motioned toward a hallway. "Your room is this way." The bedroom was spacious, bright, and untouched. A large bed stood near the windows, covered in crisp white linens. A row of empty shelves lined the wall, waiting for pieces of a life that had been uprooted too quickly. Near the dresser sat several boxes. Mara recognized her handwriting on the labels. Her voice trembled. "My things. How did they get here already?" "I arranged the transport," Adrian said. It was the most practical solution. Practical, efficient, quick. Words that belonged to his world, not hers. He stood near the doorway, his outline framed by the soft afternoon light. "Our arrangement requires presence. It also requires boundaries. We will maintain separate quarters. Private matters will remain private. Any public appearances will follow a coordinated schedule." Mara nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good." His expression did not change. "Dinner is at 7. Punctuality is important." He turned and walked down the hall, his footsteps fading, until only the soft hum of the penthouse remained. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the linen beneath her fingers. Everything was too clean, too silent, too distant from the life she had lived just hours before. She looked out at the city below, a glittering maze that made her feel small and unanchored. She had saved her father's home. She had secured a future she had begun to believe would never come. But as evening light shifted across the floor, Mara felt something else settle inside her. A quiet unease. A sense that she had stepped into a world with rules she did not know yet, and a man whose silence seemed as heavy as the empire he controlled. This was now her life. A life inside the frozen walls of Adrian Cross. Mara remained seated on the edge of the bed, long after Adrian's footsteps had faded into silence. The penthouse felt enormous, yet somehow it pressed in around her, as if the space itself was waiting to see how she would react. She touched the boxes containing her belongings, the familiar handwriting on the labels, whispering reminders of a life that now felt impossibly far away. At 6:52, she forced herself to stand. Adrian had said dinner was at 7. There was something about the way he spoke that made her believe punctuality was not simply a preference, but a rule etched deeply into the structure of his world. She walked down the long hallway, her steps quiet on the polished wood floors. The dining area overlooked the city through a wall of glass where the fading light painted the sky in muted shades of blue and silver. Adrian was already seated at the end of a long table posture, straight hands resting lightly on the surface. He looked up when she entered. "Sit." It was not unkind, not sharp, but it was a command shaped by habit. Mara sat across from him, unsure where to place her hands. A moment later, a silent household staff member entered with 2 plates and set them down without a word. The meal looked exquisite, perfectly arranged, balanced in a way that almost seemed artistic. Adrian waited until the staff member left before speaking. "Our routines will remain structured," he said. "It prevents unnecessary complications." Mara nodded. "I understand." He studied her for a moment. "You are quiet." "I am still adjusting," she said. "Adjustment is temporary," he replied. "Consistency is what remains." There was no softness in the words, but there was no cruelty either. It was simply the way he lived, as if every day depended on precise execution. Mara wondered what a life like that did to a person, what it had done to him. As they ate, the silence felt heavy, not hostile but weighted with things neither of them knew how to say. Mara looked around the penthouse. Everything was flawless. The art on the walls, the minimalistic furniture, the spaces free of clutter or warmth. She could not imagine Adrian relaxing here, could not imagine him laughing or smiling or living in a way that felt human. Halfway through the meal, he spoke again. "You will need to attend a charity gala with me on Friday night." Mara almost choked. "This Friday, yes. Our presence together will confirm the announcement and prevent speculation. You will be provided with an appropriate outfit. I will arrange transportation." She tried to breathe steadily. "I have never been to a gala." "You will manage," he said simply. "You learn quickly." Mara fell silent again, unsure whether that was a compliment or an observation. Adrian glanced toward the skyline, his expression unreadable. "Public events require clarity," he said. "People will assume things. They always do. Our job is to maintain a consistent narrative." Mara swallowed. "Does it bother you?" What people assume? Adrian paused for the first time that evening. His gaze drifted back to her, and for a moment the mask he wore loosened. Not enough to reveal anything fully, but enough for her to sense a shadow behind the stillness. "What people assume rarely matters," he said at last. "What they could discover does." His tone carried something she could not identify. A warning, a memory, a wound. She could not tell which. Dinner continued quietly. When they finished, Adrian set his utensils down with precise alignment. He seemed ready to rise, then stopped as if reconsidering. "Mara," he said. She lifted her eyes. "You are here because it is necessary. Not because I expect anything from you beyond cooperation. If you feel overwhelmed or uncertain, you will tell me. Clarity prevents mistakes." His words surprised her. They were cold, yes, but there was a kind of structure in them that felt almost protective, like a railing along a dangerous path. Mara nodded slowly. "I will." Adrian stood. "Good. There are documents for you to review tomorrow. They outline our unified timeline and public statements. The staff will assist you in preparing for the gala." He stepped away from the table. "Rest tonight. You will need it." Mara watched him disappear into the long hallway, his presence leaving the room almost immediately. The penthouse grew quiet again, the kind of quiet that made every breath feel louder than it should. She looked at the city through the glass wall. The lights flickered like distant stars, unreachable and cold. She had entered this world because she had no other choice. But now, as she walked back to her room, one truth settled over her with chilling clarity. She was living with a man whose silence held entire storms, and she had no idea what waited beneath the ice. The night after the quiet dinner passed slowly for Mara. She lay awake in her new room listening to the faint hum of the building and the distant sounds of the city below. Every few minutes she glanced toward the door, half expecting footsteps, half fearing them. But none came. Adrian Cross remained somewhere on the opposite side of the vast penthouse, wrapped in the cold composure that seemed to follow him everywhere. Morning brought a pale winter light spilling across her floor. Mara forced herself up, showered and dressed in the simple clothes she had brought from her old life. When she stepped into the hallway, she found a neatly folded note on the small console table. Meeting room, 8 o'clock. His handwriting was clean, firm, and controlled just like the man himself. Mara followed the hallway into a spacious room that overlooked the river. Adrian was already there. He stood near a tall glass table with a stack of documents arranged in perfect order. The morning light framed him in a way that made the sharp lines of his suit look almost metallic. "You are on time," he said. "Good." Mara nodded, unsure if she should sit. Adrian motioned toward a chair, and she took it carefully. "These," he said, tapping the papers, "outline the public timeline of our engagement, our decision to marry, and the circumstances of our relationship. They align with what we will present at the gala on Friday." Mara glanced at the documents. Her own life now existed in paragraphs written by someone else, shaped into a narrative she had never lived. Adrian watched her closely. "I know this is unfamiliar, but it must be done correctly. Public perception can shift quickly, and we do not have room for missteps." He spoke with a calm firmness that suggested he had repeated similar warnings many times in his life. Mara wondered if he ever grew tired of carrying the weight of so much control. She skimmed through the pages. "This says we met at a charity event last year." "Yes," Adrian replied. "It is a believable point of origin. We were photographed at the same venue, though we did not interact. It supports the narrative." "And this says you proposed in December," Mara read quietly. "Correct." Mara looked up. "But December was months ago." "Yes," Adrian said, "which is why it will hold. People rarely question events that happened quietly behind closed doors. They prefer stories that feel settled." Mara exhaled slowly. "It feels strange." "Strange does not mean wrong," Adrian replied. "It simply means it is new." There was something in his tone that softened for a heartbeat, but it vanished quickly, replaced by his usual stillness. A soft chime interrupted the moment. A member of the household staff stepped inside, carrying a garment bag made of thick ivory fabric. She set it on a stand and stepped back silently. Adrian turned to Mara. "This is the dress for Friday's gala. It has been tailored to your measurements." Mara blinked. "My measurements, I had them taken from the clothes you brought," he said. Approximations were adjusted as needed. She felt heat rise to her cheeks, not embarrassment exactly, but a quiet realization of how thoroughly Adrian managed every detail of their fictional life. "You will try it on this afternoon," he said. "If adjustments are needed, the tailor will return." Mara nodded again, though her thoughts were tangled. The world she had entered did not wait for her to catch up. It simply moved forward, expecting her to follow. Adrian walked to the window, his reflection faint in the glass. "There is something you should understand, Mara." She looked at him carefully. "What is that?" "People at the gala will try to read you," Adrian said. "They will watch, whisper, and judge without hesitation. Some will test you. Some will attempt to provoke you. They believe that anyone connected to me must be strategic." Mara felt a chill under her skin. "What should I do?" "You should remain composed," he said. "People fear confidence more than truth. If you appear unbothered, they will retreat." His voice held no warmth, yet there was a glimmer of protection woven through the words almost hidden beneath the steel. "And what about you?" Mara asked quietly. Adrian's jaw tightened. "I am accustomed to scrutiny." He turned back to her. For a brief second, Mara sensed something behind his eyes, not coldness, but a kind of loneliness that stretched deeper than distance. Then it was gone. "We will review the final details tomorrow morning," he said. "For now, familiarize yourself with the timeline. The more you understand it, the more believable it will become." Mara held the documents in her hands, feeling their weight. Her life rewritten. Her future redirected. Her stability secured by a man whose heart remained hidden behind walls she could not see through yet. As she walked back to her room, the penthouse felt different, larger, quieter, and somehow colder. The gala was coming, and with it the first true test of their fabricated marriage. A test she could not afford to fail. Friday arrived faster than Mara expected. The week had passed in a blur of instructions, rehearsed timelines, and silent dinners where Adrian seemed present in body but far away in thought. The penthouse remained cold and immaculate, and Mara felt herself moving through it like a visitor in a museum she did not dare touch. When the car pulled up to the gala venue, Mara felt her pulse quicken. The building rose before them like a cathedral of glass filled with warm golden lights and the soft murmur of wealthy guests stepping out of luxury vehicles. Adrian stepped out first, offering his hand without looking directly at her. "Stay close," he said. Mara took his hand, surprised by the quiet strength in his grip. Cameras flashed immediately, capturing them in rapid bursts of light. Adrian's expression remained calm and unreadable, as if he were carved from marble. Mara tried to mirror his composure, lifting her chin slightly, remembering every instruction he had given her. Inside, the gala glowed with chandeliers and soft music drifting from a live orchestra. Conversations overlapped in smooth, confident tones. People turned as Adrian entered the room, their eyes widening with a mix of curiosity and calculation. Mara felt dozens of silent judgments moving across her like winter air. A woman in a crimson gown approached her, smile sharp and polished. "Adrian." I was beginning to wonder if the rumors were true. Adrian gave a brief nod. "This is Mara." The woman's gaze swept over Mara with the kind of interest that felt more like inspection than greeting. So the engagement was real after all. How unexpected. Mara opened her mouth to respond, but Adrian spoke first. "We prefer to keep our private life private." The woman's smile tightened before she drifted away, whispering something to another guest who looked immediately intrigued. Mara felt a flicker of panic rise in her chest. Adrian leaned slightly toward her. "Do not react. They want you to." She steadied her breath. "I understand." They moved through the room together, speaking briefly with board members, donors, and advisors. Every interaction was a test. Every handshake, every smile, every glance measured and analyzed. Mara could feel how intensely the room watched her, searching for cracks in the story. At one point, a silver-haired man approached them with a drink in hand. "Adrian, your choice of partner is interesting." Adrian's expression did not change. "Mara is my wife. That is all that needs to be said." His tone was quiet, but something in it silenced the man instantly. Mara felt a small shock travel through her. It was the first time Adrian had used the word wife without clinical distance. As they continued around the gala, Mara sensed him growing more aware of her presence. When someone stepped too close, he shifted slightly, creating space around her. When conversations became tense, he positioned her behind the shield of his calm authority. It was subtle, controlled, but undeniable. Later, as they stood near the balcony doors, Mara allowed herself a breath away from the crowd. Adrian stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back, gaze fixed forward. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Thank you," Mara replied quietly. "I was nervous." "Being nervous does not make you weak," Adrian said. "It means you care about getting it right." She was not prepared for the warmth that flickered in his voice, brief but unmistakable. It felt like a small crack in the wall he kept around himself. Then someone called his name from across the room, and just like that, the moment vanished. "We must go," Adrian said, but as they walked back into the crowd, Mara could not ignore the strange feeling settling inside her. For the first time, she wondered what else might lie beneath the ice that surrounded Adrian Cross. The rest of the evening unfolded in a blur of polite conversations and carefully measured expressions. By the time Adrian guided Mara toward the exit of the gala, her shoulders ached from holding herself upright under so many watchful eyes. Cameras flashed again as they stepped outside, capturing the final images of the night. Inside the car, silence settled between them. Not cold, but heavy. Mara stared out the window at the passing city lights, unsure of what Adrian was thinking. His posture remained straight and composed, but something in his jaw suggested he was deep in thought. When they arrived at the penthouse, Adrian walked several steps ahead of her. The door closed behind them with a soft echo that filled the vast space. Mara hesitated near the entryway, unsure if she should speak or retreat to her room. Then Adrian turned. "You did well tonight," he said. "Better than I expected." Mara blinked. "Thank you." "It was not a compliment," he continued. "It was an observation." His words struck her in a strange way, not cruel but unexpectedly honest. She nodded quietly. Adrian removed his cufflinks, placing them on the nearby table with a precise motion. "You remained calm under pressure." Most people do not. Mara could not help asking. Do you think people wanted me to fail? They wanted you to reveal something, Adrian replied. Anything that would confirm their suspicions about me. She looked at him carefully. What suspicions? For the first time, Adrian's expression shifted. Not fully, not enough to break the composed mask he wore, but enough for Mara to sense a small fracture beneath the surface. That I am not capable of trust, he said. That I cannot choose anyone without a hidden purpose. Mara swallowed softly. Is that true? Adrian held her gaze for a long moment. The quiet between them stretched, filled with the unspoken weight of something she could not name. It does not matter what they believe, he finally said. What matters is that you did not give them anything tonight. He stepped past her, heading toward the hallway, but paused halfway. Mara, he said without turning, if anyone approaches you in the coming days with questions or comments about the gala, you will tell me. Do not answer anyone directly. People can be persistent. Persistent. The word sounded like a warning. I understand, she replied. He nodded once and disappeared into the shadows of the corridor. Mara stood alone in the quiet penthouse, her heartbeat still unsteady from the evening. She walked toward the windows, watching the city twinkle beneath the night sky. Something inside her shifted, subtle but undeniable. The world of Adrian Cross was colder than she imagined, but it was no longer only cold. It was layered, complicated, and for the first time she wondered what it might cost her to keep walking deeper into it. The next morning the penthouse felt unusually still. Mara stepped into the kitchen, the quiet hum of the appliances filling the empty space. She made herself a small breakfast, unsure if Adrian had already left for work or was simply hidden somewhere behind closed doors. She was halfway through her coffee when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Interesting performance last night. Does Adrian know who you really are? Mara's breath caught. She stared at the text, her heart pounding faster with each passing second. Another message arrived immediately after. Perhaps we should talk. Secrets have a way of coming out. Her fingers tightened around the phone. She had no secrets, nothing she was hiding, nothing that could possibly interest strangers. But the wording felt sharp, deliberate, designed to shake her. She remembered Adrian's warning from the night before. People will approach you. People will test you. Do not respond. Mara placed the phone on the counter, trying to steady herself. But before she could move, the elevator doors opened. Adrian stepped out, crisp in his suit, expression unreadable. He paused when he saw her. You look unsettled. She hesitated. Someone sent me a message. His eyes hardened instantly. Show me. Mara handed him the phone. Adrian read the messages slowly, his jaw tightening in a way she had not seen before. The quiet in the room grew heavy, almost electric. This is deliberate, he said. Someone is trying to provoke you. Why? She asked softly. Because they want access to me, Adrian replied. And they think you are the weak point. The words stung even though his tone was matter-of-fact. I am blocking this number, he continued. If you receive anything else, you tell me immediately. Do not answer anyone, no matter how harmless they seem. Mara nodded. I will. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. There was something different in his gaze now, still cold, still controlled, but edged with a quiet protectiveness she had not expected. You are not alone in this, he said quietly. Do not let them scare you. Before she could respond, he turned and walked down the hall, his shoulders tense with a silent anger that seemed directed at the world outside, not at her. Mara watched him disappear, her pulse still unsteady. The first real threat had arrived, and whoever sent that message was not finished yet. For the rest of the morning, Mara could not shake the feeling of being watched. The penthouse was bright with winter sunlight, yet every shadow seemed sharper than before. She kept glancing at her phone, half expecting another message to appear. But nothing came. By early afternoon, Adrian returned briefly between meetings. He moved through the penthouse with a controlled intensity, speaking into his phone as he coordinated security changes. Mara listened from the hallway, hearing firm phrases she did not fully understand. Trace all unknown numbers. Review last night's guest list. No assumptions. Verify everything. When he finally ended the call, he noticed her watching him. You should not worry about this, he said. I am handling it. Mara nodded, though her stomach churned. Do you think the message came from someone at the gala? Adrian exhaled slowly, his gaze shifting toward the floor to ceiling windows. Possibly. People enjoy stirring chaos when they believe they can remain unseen. He looked back at her, and for once there was no icy distance in his expression, only focus and a trace of something that felt unexpectedly protective. "You did not do anything wrong," he said. "They are trying to create instability. It will not work." Mara held his gaze. "I trust you." Something flickered in his eyes at those words, a quick, subtle change she almost missed. Before either of them could speak again, the intercom buzzed softly. A staff member's voice came through. "Mr. Cross, your assistant is here. She says it is urgent." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Send her up." Moments later, the elevator doors opened and a woman stepped out. She wore a tailored suit and carried a folder against her side. Her posture was sharp, confident. Her eyes flicked briefly to Mara before settling on Adrian. "There was an incident," she said. "A board member confronted the press this morning. He hinted that your marriage may have been rushed for a reason. He implied inconsistencies." Adrian's expression shifted into something colder than Mara had ever seen. "Who?" he asked. "Leon Mercer," the assistant replied. He spoke off the record, but it was intentional. Mara felt the air change around them. Leon Mercer. She remembered him from the gala. Silver hair. A sharp gaze. A question that felt more like a test. Adrian closed the distance between them with a calm that frightened Mara, more than anger ever could. "Find out who he spoke to," he said, "and find out why." The assistant nodded quickly and left. For a moment the penthouse went silent. Then Adrian turned to Mara. "He wants something," Adrian said. "Mercer never acts without purpose. The message you received may be connected." Mara swallowed gently. "Why target me?" "Because you are the variable he cannot measure," Adrian replied. "He wants to know if you can be pressured." Mara felt her pulse in her throat. "Can I?" Adrian stepped closer, his voice low. "That depends on whether you believe in the choice you made." Mara held his gaze, feeling her fear settle into something steadier. "I do." Adrian did not move for a few seconds. Then, in a tone just slightly softer than before, he said, "Then you are stronger than he expects." For the first time, Mara sensed the faintest warmth beneath the layers Adrian kept so tightly guarded, but the threat outside their doors was growing, and Leon Mercer would not stop with whispers. The real confrontation was coming. The confrontation came sooner than either of them expected. Later that evening, as the city lights flickered across the penthouse windows, Adrian received a call that hardened every line in his posture. Without a word, he motioned for Mara to follow him into the meeting room. The assistant appeared on the screen, her expression tight. "Mr. Cross," she said, "Leon Mercer, just contacted the press again. This time he went on the record. He claimed your marriage was fabricated to manipulate an inheritance clause." Mara felt her breath catch. Adrian's expression did not change, but the air around him grew colder. "He also suggested," the assistant continued, "that your wife may have her own motives." Mara's heart sank. Adrian ended the call with a calm that did not match the storm she felt rising around them. Then he turned to her. "You are not the problem," he said. "He is." "Why would he do this?" Mara asked. "Because the clause he wants to control transfers authority away from him," Adrian replied. "Your presence makes that impossible." Mara stared at him, realization becoming clear. "So he wants to discredit me." "He wants to discredit us both," Adrian said quietly. "But there is one thing he underestimated." "What is that?" Adrian took a slow breath, the kind that felt like a decision forming. "You." Before she could respond, Adrian pulled up a file on the screen. It was the full legal documentation of their arrangement, every clause, every timestamp, every detail that proved the marriage was lawful and fully compliant. He highlighted one section. "This is what Leon pretended he could expose," Adrian said. "But instead we will be the ones revealing the truth." Mara looked at him in surprise. "You want to go public, I want to end this," Adrian replied. "And I will not allow him to use your name as a weapon." There was a strength in his voice she had not heard before, steady, unwavering, almost protective. The next morning Adrian made a public statement, calm and precise. He confirmed the marriage, explained the legalities with full transparency, and shut down every rumor without anger or defensiveness. His clarity cut through the speculation like a clean blade. By noon, Mercer's accusations had collapsed. That evening, back at the penthouse, Mara stood by the windows as the city glowed beneath them. Adrian approached quietly. "You handled this better than most," he said. "Better than I expected." Mara smiled softly. "I guess we both surprised someone this week." For the first time, the cold distance in Adrian's expression eased, replaced by a quiet, honest warmth. "This arrangement began out of necessity," he said. "But that does not mean it has to end that way." Mara met his gaze, feeling the truth of his words settle gently in her chest. In the city that once felt impossible to survive, she had found a place. And in the man the world believed was frozen inside, she had discovered something quietly, undeniably real.